2017-2021 CBA, which we have not up to date been paid. The second thing is that 2025-2027, 2025-2029 CBA, we are not yet to launch a local implementation committee that is supposed to solve that issue. And that's why we are here today to tell the government and our management team that will stand with our members.
Right, still matters education. At the Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology, the situation was similar, with learning paralyzed for 2 days in a row now. Now, staff at JKUAT urged the University Academic Staff Union not to relent in their quest to have the 2021-2025 CBA agreement implemented with immediate effect.
The government at the moment owes us 15-month arrears. The least a university staff is owed here is 200,000. And the highest a university staff is owed here is over 1 million shillings. And the government has audacity to pay 10,000 shillings to people without any budget at the State House. And therefore we are demanding our right. As we are not asking to be called to State House to go at the be dished out money, we are asking to be paid what is due to us. Solidarity.
I'll tell you, you cannot be able to convince staff in the university because they have been seeing what has been happening in this country. We all live here, we see the news. We have some programs here codenamed empowerment program. Those programs, we all know, is money being dished out from the government. The government can be able to afford to spend such colossal amount of money every day in name of empowerment. And yet, they are not civil enough to honor a very simple agreement with the university workers, which amounts to about 2.73 billion. And we are saying, then we must take the government of the day to account.
The other day, His Excellency the President was saying he's one of the most learned presidents we have ever had in this country. That is true. He has a doctorate of philosophy in biological sciences. We taught him. We taught him. Yes. We taught him good manners. We taught him to pay workers. We taught him to act by the Constitution. Hiyo mlolongo na laini napigwa pale State House, watu waenda wapewe pesa. Hiyo tumefanya nini? Hiyo pesa ifanye nini? Ilete, ilipe wafanyikazi wa university mshahara yao. Yes. Tumesema hivyo. Yes. Na kutoka hapa tunaendelea na hii mkomo. Kama kuna wanafunzi wako hii university, tunawaomba watulie na wakizidi warudi.
Right, moving on, the government is on Friday set to roll out a road map on how more than 1.5 million Kenyans will be insured under the Social Health Authority at its cost, as it seeks to increase the number of Kenyans covered under the public health insurer. Now, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, who made the announcement when he meets 3,000 community health promoters at Embu County at his Irondoni home, says the move will increase the number of Kenyans currently registered under the insurer to an upward of 28 million from the current 26.7 million.
Who are indigent, they cannot afford. Hata ukiwaambia 300 hawana. Yes, si kweli? Yeah. So when we said about this thing, people thought we are joking. So kesho ngojea pale Ikulu utasikia rais akitangaza the first 1.5 million. Na tutaendelea kuongeza idadi ya wale tunalipia.
This is the army to help you. Mambo hii ya SHA, mambo ya universal health, hata kueneza habari ya ile maneno unafanya. These are the best people. Kwa hivyo ukiwatuma ile message umewapatia hapa leo, kutoka kesho asubuhi, by evening, hakuna mtu atakuwa najua. Right, moving on, a storm is brewing in the Senate over a new tobacco control bill.
Lawmakers say it will protect Kenyans from harmful nicotine products, but traders insist it will cripple their businesses, fuel the black market, and amount to double taxation. They are now demanding the Senate to halt debate until fresh consultations are held across all 47 counties. Lisa Mutinda now reports.
The Tobacco Control Bill tabled in the Senate by nominated Senator Catherine Muma seeks tougher control on the sale, advertising and use of tobacco and nicotine products. It proposes banning online sales flavored products and slapping violators with penalties of up to 500,000 shillings or 3 years in jail. Traders insist they were shut out of the process. Faith Mwende, chair of the Bar Owners Association, says lawmakers ignored public participation.
We, the business owners, we were not involved in it. The second thing, they proposed that the licensing, to have a special license on tobacco sellers. It will be very high for common mwananchi. Yes, we know cigarette is harmful to our health. And we have come, or the tobacco companies, they have come with a way on how to reduce the tobacco. But now, what they are doing is to kill the industry itself.
Retailers fear the proposal will fuel illicit trade and deny the government revenue. Cindy Mwethia from Bamburi once outlawing flavored nicotine will only push customers underground.
Itawahamasisha wafanyabiashara haramu kuingiza bidhaa haramu katika soko la Kenya, na hivyo kutunyima sisi wamiliki halali wa biashara fursa ya kupata kipato halali kwa kuuza bidhaa halali. Swali tunalotaka kuuliza Seneti ni hili: kwa nini Seneti inasisitiza kuangamiza biashara kupitia mswada huu?
The bill also gives counties power to impose new licensing fee, which traders describe as a double taxation and harassment. The traders now want the Senate to suspend the debate until fresh inclusive consultations are held across all 47 counties.
Fighting the drugs in Mombasa or in Kenya as a whole. But we can't do it without the input of our 90. We have to give respect to the Constitution of Kenya. Chapter 1 of the Constitution of Kenya gives the power to our 90. Sovereignty power belongs to the people. These people are not involved, or we are not part of this bill when it was done amendment. So we kindly request for it to be redone again.
Lisa Mutinda reporting for EBN.
All right, thank you, Lisa Mutinda, for that particular report. Moving on, President William Ruto has called on church leaders to support his development agenda, saying the nation has made great steps in the 3 years he has been in leadership. Now, the head of state, who listed major achievements, including affordable housing, food security, a strong economy, said he is committed to fulfilling all the promises he made when he vied for the presidential position. President William Ruto has called on Kenyans to have faith in his government, which had to deal with a ban of debt when he took over office in 2022.
We have wasted a lot of time making peace with mediocrity, working with the average, when God wants us to be excellent. So, and let me tell you, in our lifetime, it is possible to move this country from the third world of today to first world. I say this, and some people think I am mad. I am not mad. It is possible. With God, it is possible. And I have started this conversation with many people, with many leaders, because it's doable. Look at what we have done. We have doubled our savings in 2 years. You know, the housing program is funded 100% by resources from Kenya. 100%. Do you know how much contracts we have signed in the housing program? Contracts worth 600 billion, using our own money. This universal health coverage, the money that have been mobilized to do universal local money, we've not borrowed from nobody. 300 billion of our own money. And so, it is possible for us to transform this nation. We need not borrow left, right, and center. We need to organize, mobilize.
Right, moving on to the corridors of justice. A court in Malindi has ordered the continued detention of 4 Kobinzaro cult suspects for an additional 60 days as investigations into mass deaths and the exhumation of victims remains intensified. Now, during a Thursday session, detectives told the court they will use the extra time to sort through 102 commingled remains already recovered, carry out post-mortem examinations, and 34 exhumed bodies, locate more graves across the 400-acre forest, and collect scattered body parts. Investigators explained that although cult members lived on the 5-acre homestead, bodies were transported and buried across a much larger 400-acre area, making recovery efforts more complex.
The applicant has demonstrated a need for the time, and that is commensurate with the gravity and complexity of the offences under investigation. Therefore, the prayer for 60 days in the circumstances is reasonable and proportionate. Consequently, the court orders as follows: that the application dated 2nd of September 2025 be and is hereby allowed. The 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th respondents shall continue to be detained for a further period of 60 days to allow the applicant to conclude investigation. That the detention shall be at Ngerenya, Kilifi, Watamu, Kijibwa Police Station, respectively, or any other police station within Kilifi County as may be deemed necessary by the applicant. That the applicant shall ensure the respondent's rights as enshrined in the Constitution are upheld during the detention. That the investigation shall file a status report on investigation every 3 weeks until expiry of the 60 days.
Right, moving on, the bishops and clergy of the Anglican Church in Bungoma have announced their support for Westlands Member of Parliament, that is Timothy Wanyonyi, in his bid for the Bungoma County Governorship in the upcoming elections of 2027. Now led by their chairman, Bishop George Mechumo, they announced that they took the step after conducting a thorough screening of all the candidates and included that Tim Wanyonyi has excellent leadership qualities due to the experience he gained in Nairobi. Take a look.
Na sisi kama kanisa tunaungana na wananchi wa Bungoma ambao waliona ni vema sana wakaweza kuchunguza miongoni mwa wanasiasa na wakakuta kuwa ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi ambaye ni mbunge wa Westlands kule Nairobi ndiye anayeweza kufaa sana kuchukua hatamu ya uongozi wa ofisi ya gavana hapa katika jimbo la Bungoma. Na kwa hivyo sisi kama kanisa la Kianglikana tukiungana pamoja na wale wananchi tunataka tumkaribishe Mheshimiwa Tim hapa Bungoma ili aweze kutenda kazi ambayo itakuwa ni ya kuendelesha na kuboresha maisha ya wengi katika jimbo hili la Bungoma. Najua ya kwamba idara ya afya katika jimbo hili imekuwa ndiyo tatizo kubwa mno, hasa tukikumbuka mnamo mwaka wa 2022 hadi mwaka wa 2023 namna tulikuwa karibu tuangamie wakati kulitokea virusi vya corona katika jimbo hili la Bungoma, wakati tulikosa uongozi na usimamizi ulio bora wa kifedha zilizohusiana sana na idara hii ya afya. Na kwa hivyo katika uchunguzi wetu na utadisi wetu tumeona kuwa mtu aliye na uwazi na anayeweza kuwajibika kwa wananchi vizuri ni huyu Mheshimiwa Tim Wanyonyi ambaye sasa hivi atakuwa ndiye anapendekezwa kwa uchaguzi. Ni mmoja ya wale ambao wamefanya kazi na walemavu kuanzia kule Uingereza na hata hapa Bungoma hapa Kenya. Ninaona kama ni kukosa heshima kwa mtu, kwa sababu hakuna mtu yeyote aliyejitakia kuwa mlema ama kuwa ni kilema. Mtu anasaliwa kwa njia ambaye Mungu alipendezwa nayo.
Now, the Democratic Action Party, that is DAPK, has nominated Seth Panyako for the Malava Member of Parliament by election. Panyako, Kenya National Union of NAS, says that is Secretary General seeks to succeed Malulu Injendi, who died in February in the election set for November 27th. He emerged as the coalition's frontrunner with a lead in the 7 wards. Now, the DAPK leader Eugene Wamalwa on Thursday described the by-election as a major test of political strength ahead of the 2027 general elections.
On the issue of whether Panyako qualifies to run for this seat or not, we are a party that has run candidates and won elections. And we want to assure all our supporters Seth Panyako is immensely qualified to run for that election. The by-election that is coming, our legal teams have already responded to the misguided position that said Panyako is a state officer. He's a representative of workers on a body, but he's not a state officer himself. So that legal position has already been cleared and responded to adequately.
Now, police officers in Kakamega County are holding in custody a man suspected of killing his girlfriend inside an entertainment joint at Mbade Market. Now, the incident has left residents of Vuyuka village in grief after they lost their daughter, and our 4th-year student at Alupe University, who was murdered in one of the rooms at Mbade Market entertainment spot. And according to the family, the deceased had left home in the evening for the market before the tragedy met her.
Mtoto wangu amekufa hata kifo kingine hata sijawahi kuona maishani yangu. Nimekuwa nimeenda kasi. Machana kwa kuja kuniita kwa kasi. Hii maafa isimamie tu hapo. Na mtoto wangu nimeng'ang'ana na yeye. Paka mashemeji zangu kutoka Butobo wamenisaidia. Upande majirani wamenisaidia. Wamenisaidia mtoto anaendelea masomo yake. University Alupe. Alupe. Mwaka kesho hii mwezi wa 4 mtoto alikuwa anatoka. Nimetumika yenye napata kitoko paka hata nimekaa maskini paka nachekelewa naongelewa mambo yenye hata mimi si maskini. Lakini shetani alinisumbua maisha yangu miaka mingi.
Chini ya huyu mtu imejulikana, so afisi ya TCI inafanya uchunguzi ili ikiwezekana apatikane ashikwe.
Right, quite unfortunate story right there. It is exactly 23 minutes past the top of the hour. We're taking a short breather here on The Drift, but when we come back, we'll tell you what exactly the newspapers are saying. The Daily today, and I'm having the Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and the Star newspaper dated the 19th day of September 2025. Now let's kickstart this program with the Daily Nation, and top story on the Daily Nation says shock over 1 billion mini polls budget and number of parliamentary seats up for grabs in November, and 62 billion Kenya shillings estimated cost of 2027 general elections. And you will remember actually the day before yesterday, there is the chairperson of the IEBC, that is Erastus Edang Ethakon, said that the IEBC has, cash crunch crisis in the IEBC, and they may not be able, to conduct their by-elections effectively, which is scheduled for November. Now, 62 billion Kenya shillings is actually scheduled, estimated cost of 2027 general elections. Now, in the year 2027, the budget was 62 billion. Polling stations were 55,393, and registered voters were 27.8 million, and cost per voter was 2,200 Kenya shillings. Now, in the year 2022, the budget was 45 billion Kenya shillings, and 46,229 were the polling stations, and 22.1 million were the registered voters, and the cost per voter was 2,000 Kenya shillings. Now, in the 2021 proposed referendum, the budget for the election was actually 14 billion Kenya shillings, and the polling stations were 40,883, and the registered voters were 19.6 million, and the cost per voter was 698 shillings. Right, in the 2017 fresh elections, 12 billion Kenya shillings was the budget, and 40,883 was were the number of polling stations. 19.6 million were the registered voters, and 607 were the cost per voter. All right. Now, in 2013, 25 billion Kenya shillings was the budget. 32,613 were the number of polling stations, and 14.4 million were the number of registered voters, and the cost per voter at that time in 2013 was 1,700. Right now, you see these numbers actually growing, and one may wonder maybe if when we reach 2040s or 50s, how the budget would look like for elections. Now, in 2027, rather the coming general elections in the year 2027, there is a budget of 62 billion Kenya shillings, and cost per voter estimated is 2,200, and registered voters are actually 27.8 million Kenya shillings, or rather 8 million registered voters. Right now, after constitutional or rather controversial 2017 elections, a parliamentary watchdog stated taxpayers were ripped off by the electoral agency through grossly inflated cost and shady procurement deals. Yet, the poll budget continues to soar, sparking criticism. That's a story on page 4 of the Daily Nation newspaper. Now, matters education. Teachers join a medical scheme run by SHA. Now, TSC wants tutors under the new health cover by December, right? And you remember before, rather, the onset of SHA, it has, faced backlash from several citizens. Now the teachers say they want the new health cover by December. That story on page 16 of the Daily Nation. Now listen to this other story. State mules instant roads fines for offenders as accidents spike. Now the government has initiated plans to introduce instant fines for motorists who fault traffic rules, noting that the indiscipline on roads is among the main causes of accidents. Now this comes as the new data from the National Transport and Safety Authority, that is the NTSA, show that Kenya has recorded 3,397 road crashes or road crash death in the first 9 months of 2025, underscoring the scale of the country's road safety crisis. Now the figure represents about 12 road accidents fatalities daily. Now the figures also represents 28 more fatalities than the same period last year, with a total of 17,270 people affected by the crash, 291 more than in 2024. Pedestrians accounted for the highest share of deaths at 1,285, followed by 858 motorists. Now speaking during the opening of the National Road Safety Conference organized by the NTSA in Mombasa, the Transport Secretary, that is Davis Chirchir, said that the proposal to introduce instant fines was in its final stages. And according to him, the introduction of the intelligence system using cameras at major junctions is meant to help enforce the Road Traffic Offences Act of 2016 by the collecting data to identify lawbreakers and issue fines. All right. Of course, there is a picture there of the Road and Transport Cabinet Secretary, that is Davis Chirchir, at the Interagency Road Safety Conference yesterday in Mombasa. And he said, and the quote, "We are in the final stages and the cabinet will issue a memo. We will be bringing together the police, judiciary and NTSA as the enforcers." Now, motorist offenders will now, if approved, will now face instant road fines for offenders as accidents spike. Right? Moving on from across our borders, Ukraine captures Kenyans fighting for Russia in war. Now, Ukraine forces have captured at least 4 Kenyans fighting for Russia's military in the ongoing 3-year-old war. The Ukrainian embassy official yesterday said that the 4 Kenyans are among many foreign nationals recruited by Russia to fight on the battlefront line. Now, the 4 Kenyans were identified as Peter Njenga, Felix Mutahi, Martin Munene, and Evans. Now, a video posted on Facebook in June shows Njenga, Mutahi, and Munene identifying themselves among several other foreigners as they prepared to join Russia's war against Ukraine. And I don't know what that means to Kenya, Kenyans joining the war across our borders, right? Still matters security. Murkomen criticized for defending police asking for fuel money. And Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has defended police officers who ask members of the public for fuel money before responding to emergencies. Now, he argued that the practice is not corruption, but as a result of inadequate fuel allocations to police stations. Now, speaking during the Jukwaa la Usalama forum in Homa Bay yesterday, Murkomen said that many police stations deplete their fuel allocations before the end of month, grounding vehicles and leaving officers with no options but to seek assistance from citizens. Right now, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen, now says, or rather defends, police who ask for fuel money. He says that, the allocations of, that police are allocated for fuel depletes. And one may wonder, these are public servants and they're asking you for, fuel money to attend to their work, right? What's your take on that? Send us your feedback on the raw SMS line 23059. Right, now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Star newspaper. Top story on the Star newspaper says, shock as county wage bills rise by 11 billion Kenya shillings in a year. Now, that's a story on page 4 and 5. Let's take a sneak peek on that particular story. And the county governments are staring at a crisis of wage bills balloon into an uncontrollable monster, swallowing resources meant to fuel the devolution dream. Now, in just 1 year, the salaries and allowances paid by the counties the counties have shot up to by 10.8 billion Kenya shillings. Now, the latest report by the Control of Budget, that is Margaret Nyakango, reveals that counties spent a staggering 220.64 billion Kenya shillings on salaries and allowances in the financial year ending June 30th of 2025. Now, the surge exposes the wage bill as the single biggest threat to devolved government, driven by overemployment, nepotism, and the persistence of ghost workers continue to have transformed into bloated employment bureaus, diverting funds away from roads, hospitals, and other grassroots development projects. Now, the report shows that the wage bill, or rather, the report shows that the employment percent of total county spending is 470.23 billion and 41% of actual revenue. Now, 533.11 billion, far above the public finance management threshold. And in some counties, the wage bill gulps down as much as 55% of revenues, leaving a thin 45% to cover operations and development. As a result, development continues to suffer. Right? That's a story going on and on and on and on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper. And the Star newspaper has highlighted a table there of the top spenders as percent of, in terms of percent of revenue. Now, top spenders in terms of counties, Nyeri County tops by 55%, and Machakos County by 54.5%, Baringo 53.4%, Tharaka Nithi County 53%, Taita Taveta County 51%, Elgeyo Marakwet 51%, Nairobi County 50.8%, Homa Bay County 50%, Lamu County 50%, Murang'a 48%, Kisumu County 48%, Bomet 48.6%, Mombasa City 47%, Vihiga 47%, Nyamira and Busia 44%. All right, that's the top spenders as far as the percentage of revenue is concerned. That's a story on page 5 and 4 of the Star newspaper. Right, now let's take a look on what's making headlines on also in the Star newspaper matters. Education varsities halt operations as Dawn's strike intensifies. Now there's a picture there of University's Academic Staff Union, that is Secretary General Constantine Wesonga, addressing lecturers at Maseno University in Kisumu, where he launched a nationwide strike. University of Nairobi lecturers during the strike on Thursday, and also TUM, that is the Technical University of Mombasa lecturers on strike. And remember that this strike has halted learning in various schools or the varsities, public varsities in the country. Of course, a matter they say will continue until the government heed to their grievances. Right, we have to see how far that will go. Right, matters politics, real history and daunting challenges as ODM turns 20. That's a story on page 4. Matters politics on the Star newspaper. And ex-CS, that is Fred Matiang'i, chides Ruto on failed state capture probe. Now, the former Interior Cabinet Secretary, Fred Matiang'i, has publicly challenged President William Ruto's administration for failing to fulfill his promised inquiry into alleged state capture. Now, he dismissed the probe, which was among Ruto's campaign pledges, as a platform, or rather as a what he called as phantom and one of the biggest lies. Now, the Kenya Kwanza honchos used to gain power. That's a story on page 6 of the Star newspaper. Moving on to other story making headlines on the Star newspaper. E-procurement here to stay, says Mbadi insists. Now, the National Treasury Cabinet, that is John Mbadi, has rolled outspoken of the new procurement directive, saying the rollout of the digital system is unstoppable. Now, he said the e-procurement is now the cornerstone of government operations, and one that reverting fully to manual systems would open doors to inefficiency and corruption. That's a story on page 8 of the Star newspaper. Now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper, dated today, the 19th day of September 2025. Top story on the Standard newspaper says, wind of change now waves sweeps Africa as incumbents are shown the door after one term. Now across Africa, the myth of the untouchable incumbent is crumbling, from Lilongwe to Gaborone, from Dakar to Lusaka. The winds of change are sweeping away presidents who once believed elections were mere rituals. Corruption, economic despair, and a restless youth bulge are rewriting the rules of power. And the fall of Malawi's Lazarus Chakwera is only the latest tremor in a continent rumbling with revolt. And there is a picture there of the former president of Botswana from 2018 to 2024. That is Mogwetsi Masisi. Also, there is a picture there of the former president of Senegal from 2012 to 2024. That is Macky Sall. And the former president of Ghana from 2017 to 2025. That is Nana Akufo-Addo. Also, there is a president of President of Malawi, that is Lazarus Chakwera, and that's a story on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Also on the second page of the Standard newspaper, also on the second page of the Standard newspaper says Mbadi clashes with MPs on shift to electronic procurement systems. Now, the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is John Mbadi, yesterday maintained that the government would proceed with the implementation of the electronic government procurement systems, that is the EGPS, despite growing concerns over disruptions caused by its rushed rollout. At the same time, Mbadi insisted that the government had not violated any law, court order, or resolutions of the National Assembly, several of which had called for the suspension of the system on grounds that it contravenes the constitutions. And of course, you will remember that actually last month, the Council of Governors, led by the Wajir governor, said that the e-procurement systems, or rather they wanted the government to recheck the e-procurement systems, and they vowed not to use that. Of course, in their counties, now CS Mbadi now clashes with MPs on shift to electronic procurement systems. Right? That's the story on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. Now, court halts push to entrench CDF cites absence of referendum law. That matters corridors of justice. And Nancy Gitonga Nairobi, the High Court decisions to stop Parliament from forwarding the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2025 to President William Ruto as sent to thrust into the spotlight along ignored gap in Kenya's constitutional architecture, the absence of a referendum law. Now, the Katiba Institute, which filed the petition, told the court that MPs have rushed into amending the constitution without first enacting legislations to govern referendums and misstep. It says they muddied the process and undermined public confidence in constitutional change. All right, that's on page 5, Matters Corridors of Justice. Of course, the wind of change, why power of incumbency is now irrelevant, is on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. Also, because I'm a sports person, let's take a look on what's making headlines on the world of sports. And gold medalist Kipyegon Chebet line up 5,000 meters clash for the world double. And of course, there is a medal standings, actually, a medal standings table on the last page of the Standard newspaper, and on the first position is the United States with a total of 8 gold, 1 silver, and 3 bronze. Right now, Kenya takes the second position with 4 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronze. Canada following third, New Zealand 4th, Jamaica 5th, and Italy 6th, and Trinidad as the 7th, Botswana 8th, Sweden 8, Sweden and Cuba also, they have a tie there of 8, or that Botswana, Sweden, and Cuba actually, they have tied in number 8, and France and Portugal tied in 11. Of course, congratulations to Team Kenya for their stellar performance in the World Athletics Championships, which is actually scheduled, or rather, which is actually taking place, which commenced on September 13th, and it will go all the way to September 21st of 2025. All right, now you're up to speed. What's making headlines on the dailies today, and as well as making headlines in the world of sports. Now we're taking a short breather here on The Drift, but when we come back, we're having Mr. and Ms. Kasarani. We're going to tell you more about the modeling industry. How is the industry as at now, and how do they navigate, throughout their career? That's a story, that's a conversation that's coming to you in a few after the break. Don't go too far.